I'm Ryan Varley, and this is a QUT transfer, now with only 2% fat. Today, we aim to look at the question, what actually makes a good advertisement? Of course, this is much easier said than done, and because of that, we will need the help of our esteemed panelists. Please welcome Mila Lesuma and Tyler Feder. Guys, let's get straight into the issue here. We all understand that advertising is a massive part of our day-to-day lives, but what are the key concepts that make an ad great?
Well, Ryan, first we have to understand every part of an advertisement is designed by its creators to communicate a message. Every choice is made, from the casting to the colour scheme to the setting, strives to create an environment that audiences will remember. These constructs can be defined as symbols, and the summation of their parts is much greater than what each of them is able to achieve on their own.
However, that's a lot easier to say than to do. While defining these constructs, the creative team of the advertisement has to take into account considerations like the target audience, the competitive landscape of the particular market, and perhaps most importantly, any cultural associations that some of the symbols may have.
You wouldn't want another case like when KFC was interpreted as being racist.
Yes, that's a perfect example of how an ad has been interpreted in a completely different way than intended.
So let's have a look at an ad that has taken an everyday item, milk, and positioned it in a way that should appeal to the everyday consumer. I'll now hand it over to our resident creative, D. Boyd. What were the main issues you encountered when creating this ad?
Well, let's have a look at the storyboard I've constructed and we can break it down from there.
Sounds fantastic. Let's take a look.
In breaking news, mass devastation has erupted across the country as the Great Australian Milk Drought enters its third day. Families are being hit hard as they struggle to continue with day-to-day life, while others have simply refused to accept the situation. Aid centres and counselling services are being set up in regional areas to help people cope in this time of need. Please contact emergency services to find a centre near you.
Moo Juice. Life is better with milk.
Good job. So how did you approach this brief?
For our first frame, we decided to introduce a familiar face as the news reporter. This new news reporter is going on to explain the devastation caused by the milk crisis and the milk drought. To go and show this on a personal level with screens 2, 3 and 4, we've shown as the first image this kid sort of crying as he's eating his cereal and really taking it to heart that he doesn't have his milk. The second one is his mum trying to cook some cake, and in the mixing bowl she doesn't have her milk, so it explodes in her face. For the third one, we just took to a whole new level with drama. We had a man collapsing in pain and devastation at the grocery store. He goes to get some milk out of the empty milk fridge. We decided to conclude this ad with a clear screen of a beautiful bright paddock with a cow running across the fields. Shortly after, you realise that this cow is being chased by an angry, desperate mob of people really wanting some milk, and they're chaotic because of this milk devastation. After this, we slam our product and brand smack bang in the middle of the image and finalise it with the slogan, "Life's better with milk."
Very interesting. Now, let's see what our panellists think. Mila, what was your opinion of the ad that Dee pitched?
The most interesting thing about the approach you've taken is using a humorous tone to sell the product. Really, this is advertising 101, but it's the little things that make an ad like this work.
Would you care to elaborate on this point?
Essentially, milk is a low involvement product. By that I mean it's not something consumers put a lot of thought into when buying. By utilising an approach that is more effective rather than cognitive, it attempts to create some form of emotional connection to the viewer, rather than barraging them with a bunch of non-important facts about the product. People are also more likely to be persuaded by something when they are in a positive mood, rather than when they have to overthink something.
That translates into the consumer being more likely to buy the product.
It's also important to acknowledge that the approach is quite good at cutting through the clutter created by other ads. By making the piece entertaining, it simply makes it more memorable.
Interesting that such a sullen message, which essentially is that life without milk is terrible, can be communicated with such a light tone.
But that's not really what the ad is about. It's about how important milk is to our everyday life. What ensures that this is communicated well here is the everyday situations that it puts its cast in.
Actually, Tyler, before we make that point, the cast of the ad is really important to mention as well. In each of the situations presented, the actors are chosen all reflective of everyday people. There is no standouts, and there is nothing that really takes the viewer out of the scene.
Almost as if they've been chosen because they are reflective of the traditional family.
Exactly. It sends the message that milk is truly a part of everyday life, and we would be worse off without it. As to my earlier point, the setting of the scenes is quite normal as well. The breakfast table, the kitchen, even the supermarket are all part of our daily routines. It's a good example of how an idea can be demonstrated without explicitly mentioning it.
Cast and the setting of an ad are obviously things that people can distinguish quite simply. But are there any more subtle examples of semiotics in this ad?
Well, the scenes that are depicted as life without milk are quite dull in their use of colour, with greys and dull blues being used to set quite a desolate and bleak mood.
Yes, and then when you compare it to the final scene where you see the sky blue, green and pink, and the product is revealed, it's almost life-affirming. It's as if the milk presents itself as a new, fresh option, even though we're all well aware of it.
The ad is framed by being presented initially as a newscast is also important to setting the scene.
It's a good example of intertextual framing actually, because we've all experienced a breaking news bulletin before, so we're able to draw on the experience that's positioned us to think that a dire situation is about to be presented to us.
The use of male and female voice to present the newscast and the overall message of the ad is a good framing device as it creates a stark contrast between the two.
It's also more likely that consumers will respond to a message when it's communicated in a way that's more familiar to them. Basically, they don't have to do much work to decode the communication.
Although the branding of the product is not overt throughout the advertisement, the fact that the ad ends with the logo shot reaffirms what the product is and how it will make a difference in the consumer's life.
Alright, so now just quickly summing up, what do you think the most likely interpretation of the ad is?
Well, overall, I think the ad effectively communicates the importance of milk in everyday life.
Yeah, I agree. Through its use of symbols, colours, setting and cast, the advertisement appeals to its target audience of everyday people and forces them to consider the life without milk.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, we'll see you next time on the QUT Transfer.